Hi! In this video I'm going to walk you through how to give your characters a stylized, painterly look to them using a technique called normal painting. Basically, what we're going to do is use Substance Painter to paint on our character's world space normal map, convert it to a tangent normal map with Substance Designer, and use a Kuwahara filter node in Blender's Compositor to help smooth everything out. We'll also touch on how to use the Brushstroke tool add-on to add hair to your characters. This is what it looks like. It's a bit of a labor-intensive process, but you get really detailed results that you just can't replicate with the procedural shader. If you want to dig deeper into normal painting or stylized rendering in general, I would highly recommend checking out Cody Gindy and Craft Reaper's videos on normal painting in Blender. They both helped a lot while I was researching how to make this technique work. I also want to bring up Brushflow Studio, a Blender add-on by Alan Wyatt, or Tradigital. It basically does this technique entirely in Blender, and would be a great option if you want to try this look but don't have access to either of the Substance programs. Okay, that being said, let's get started. Before we paint our textures, we're going to check a few things. Make sure your model is UV unwrapped and nothing is doubled up or symmetrical. A common place to do this would be the hands or the shoes or maybe the eyes. This is because the world space normal is dependent on which way each face is facing. So the geometry facing this way will be pink and the geometry facing this way will be blue. If you try to paint symmetrically in Substance, you'll be painting pink onto blue and it just won't work. Once that's done, assign your materials with just a basic principled BSDF. I've got it broken down into clothing, accessories, face, hair, eyes, and mouth. How you split this up is totally up to you. Fewer is better though, it'll help reduce render times just a little bit. And then lastly, if you're doing a high poly to low poly workflow, just double check all of your meshes have matching suffixes. My low poly has _LP, and my high poly has _HP. You don't need to do a high poly to low poly, like if you're doing something simple like a chair or desk, but I find it helps when doing more complicated stuff like clothing folds or faces. Gives a bit better of a starting point. Then once that's all done, we'll export our character. Select only your low poly meshes and go up to File, Export FBX. Under Include, check off Selected Objects, and click Mesh under Object Types. If you've used any sort of modifiers like multi-res on your high poly for sculpting, you want to check Apply Modifiers too. And uncheck Animation because we don't have any of that. Make sure to give it a good name and save it to the correct folder and hit Export. And then do the same with your high poly mesh. And now let's open up Substance Painter. Once that's open, hit File and select your low poly FBX. The template doesn't really matter because we're going to be making a lot of changes, but I'll choose Blender because we're working in Blender. For your document resolution, whatever works for you. My characters have 4K textures, so I'll choose 4K. Blender uses OpenGL, so that will stay the same. If you're using a UDIM workflow, you can check that little box right there. Otherwise, everything else should be good, so we can hit OK. Over in the texture set list, set your texture sizes to their correct resolutions. Then, under Texture Set Settings, scroll down to the channels and delete whatever channels you don't need. For my characters, I only use color, roughness, metallic, and on one occasion opacity. But for Sheriff, we'll leave that out. Click on the little plus in the corner and under User Channels, select User 0. Double-click and rename it to World, then using the little gear, select RGB16F. You can double-check that the channel has been added by going to the Materials dropdown. It should be there under Single Channel. Then go through and repeat this step for all of your character's materials. Click the little croissant to open the baking window. Set the output to match your biggest texture. Mine's going to be 4K. Click on the little paper and import your high poly mesh, if you're using one. Otherwise, don't worry about this step. Under Match, pick Match by Mesh Name and change the suffixes to whatever you used. Mine will be _LP and _HP. Then, under Mesh Map Bakers, uncheck all the maps you don't need. The only ones you definitely need are Normal and World Space Normal. All other maps are for your texturing desires. The ones I usually use are Ambient Occlusion, Curvature, and Position. You can bake everything if you want, it'll just take a little longer. Go ahead and repeat this step for all of your materials. Then hit Bake Selected Textures. You might have to wait a minute. And return to painting mode. I'm going to start with Sheriff's clothing first. Let's make a new fill layer and call it Pants Base. Scroll down to the Material Properties panel and select Rough and World channels. Sheriff's pants are brown, so we'll set that to something like this. And they're fabric, so we'll set the roughness to 0.8. Then in the search bar, type in World and grab the world space map for your material. You can check to see that it worked by going up to the little drop down and clicking World. Now if you have a character with multiple pieces of clothing or accessories and you want to mask out stuff so you don't accidentally paint over everything, you can create folders with masks to separate things. So create a folder, name it Pants, drag the fill into the folder, and add a black mask to it. Click the Polygon Fill tool and click the cube for mesh selection. Make sure the fill mode is set to white and click on whatever you want to mask out. I would probably make 3 more folders for Sheriff's shirt, for the vest, and for the metal pieces. So just one more time. Fill layer, shirt base, roughness and world. We'll leave the base color white and change the roughness to 0.8 as well. And drag the world space map onto its channel. New folder, name it shirt. Add the base, black mask, and select the shirt. Now, back in our pants folder, I'm going to click on this little paintbrush to add a paint layer. You can just name this paint or something. Scroll down to the material properties again, and this time select color and world. For the base color, we're going to use a color jitter. I have it favorited, but you can just type in jitter in the search bar. Grab the one with the little gray dots in the corner and drag that onto your base color. Under dynamic stroke, change the seed type to random per stroke. The random sample amount controls how many random colors it'll pick from. I tend to use 16 or 32, but choose whatever works for you. For our color, I'll quickly switch to the base color channel and color pick the pants. I like setting hue to 0.1, saturation to 0.15, and leaving the luminance at 2. But again, do whatever you like best. And finally switch back to the world space channel and use the little eyedropper to color pick a spot on your character. And then you can start painting. Also, just a warning, the keyboard shortcut for color picker, P, will remove the color jitter. You have to manually click the eyedropper every time you want to switch colors. It's kind of annoying, but you'll get used to it. It's better to have the opacity and flow set pretty high so you get defined strokes of color. You don't want to make your brush too soft because the hard edges are what make this technique look painterly. You can try it with different brushes too. So, as you're painting, you can switch over to the base color channel to see how your colors are looking. If there's specific parts you want certain colors, like the seam on his pants here, you can add another paint layer. I'll name it Detail and change the jitter settings so it's a lot darker. And then just paint on top. And when you go back to color, you'll see your darker details. And that's the basic technique for normal matte painting. Now you just have to do this for your entire character. It'll probably take a bit of time, so just make sure you save often and keep all of your layers organized. I'll open up my finished file and show you how it looks. Okay, so here he is. Here are all the different maps: base color, roughness, metallic, and world space. And just a quick note about the hair. You can paint your hair like the rest of your model, however, I found that it didn't look that great. It felt very flat and not hair-like at all. Luckily, Blender has this add-on called the Brushstroke tool, which is what I ended up using on my character's hair. It uses actual geometry that sticks to your mesh, which breaks up the silhouette of the model and adds more volume and fluffiness than just painting it. I'll go over it a little later in the video. Okay, so let's get our textures exported. Hit File, Export Textures. Under Output Templates, right-click on the Blender template and hit Duplicate. Double-click and rename this. Something like Painted Normals will be okay. Delete the unnecessary maps. Like when we were painting, it'll just be diffuse, metallic, and roughness. Create a new RGB output map. Under the Input Maps column, scroll down to User 0 and drag that on top of the little RGB box. Pick from RGB channels. Then rename it. I like to copy substances $texture set underscore and add world space normal to the end of it. Now back under settings, global settings. Pick your template and output directory. Select each of your materials and check or uncheck the maps you want to export. Then hit export. Let's open up Substance Designer and convert our world space normals into tangent normals. Alright, so now we're in Substance Designer. Click New Substance Graph and pick Adobe Standard Material. Right-click on Unsaved Package and link 3D Scene. Then add your low poly. We're going to right-click on our model and select Bake Model Information. We'll have to render out each map individually, so deselect all but one of your materials. Set the default size to your texture's resolution, and under Baker's render list, add world space direction. Under Baker parameters, change the input direction to from texture. Our direction file is going to be our world space normal map. Then change the normal orientation to OpenGL. Make sure to select where you want your files to go. Mine are going to go into my texture folder. And add a name. Usually I just do whatever the material is with underscore tangent normal. Then hit Start Render. Repeat this for all of your materials and we'll bring it back into Blender to put it together. Okay, so now we're back in Blender and we're going to add our texture maps to our materials. Before doing that, if you haven't already, I would recommend getting Node Wrangler. You just need to go under Edit into Preferences and under Add-ons search for Node Wrangler. It adds a bunch of hotkeys that'll help speed up the texturing process. Now, we'll open a new shader editor window and start adding our texture maps to our principled BSDF. Hit Ctrl-T to add an image texture setup and click Open to find your base color texture. Hit Shift-D to duplicate the image node and add your metallic and roughness maps. For these nodes, make sure to set the color space from sRGB to non-color. And plug all of those in. Then duplicate the image node one last time and find your tangent normal map. Set that to non-color as well. Hit Shift-A, search, normal map, and connect color to color and normal to normal. And there you go, you can already see the painterly effect. You can also play around with the strength of the normal map. 1 is a perfect starting point, but if you want a bit more of a contrasty look, you can try bumping it up to 1.5. I wouldn't go over 2 because then it starts to look a little weird. You can use Alt-right-click on the mapping node to connect all of the vector inputs. And then we'll just do that for all of our materials. Alright, so here's our model with all of the textures added. Before we hop into the compositor, I'm going to quickly go over how to add brushstroke hair to your model. I'll leave a link in the description to Blender Studio's actual tutorial that'll go over how to install it and go over the tool in depth. But for now, we'll open the side panel using N and go down to the Brushstroke Tools tab. I already have the brows and the beard done, so we'll just do his hair. And sometimes the brush strokes like to show up without their textures, so just select that and unhide it, and that'll fix it. Select your object and add a new fill layer. Hop over to the Shape tab and set the normal offset to 0.0015. I find that when the brush strokes are further away from the mesh, they don't follow the flow curves as well. You can play with the brush width and length as well. I'm just going to leave these at default for now. Under Color, we'll change Curves to Texture and pick our diffuse hair texture. Now hit Edit Flow and roughly draw in how you want your hair to flow. If you have any bits that are totally hanging off your mesh like this, hit Trim to Mesh to get rid of those. Under Material, you can play around with the look of the brush strokes. For my characters, I did streaky oil dashes with a blend of 0.2. And there we go. It looks a little rough, but you can obviously spend more time on this and get it looking really good. The Kuwahara filter will also help smooth everything out. Okay, now let's get the live compositor going. We'll just hop over to the Compositing tab up at the top here. Make sure Use Nodes is checked. Hit Shift-A, search Kuwahara, and drag that between these two nodes. Set it to anisotropic, sharpness to 0.75, eccentricity to 2, and let's say the size to 4. You can play around with these settings though. If you want to deep dive into how the Kuwahara filter works, definitely check out Acerola's video on it. It's actually really interesting and a super fun watch. Then hit F12 to render one frame. It doesn't need to be of anything, we just need one frame to enable the live compositor. Okay, back to our layout tab. Under the arrow beside the viewport shading buttons, we'll go down to Compositor and hit Always. And there we go, that's it. Thank you for watching. This was my first time making any kind of tutorial, so hopefully it all made sense. If you want to see this technique in full effect, you can watch my thesis film. It's called The Killing of the Sheriff. I'll leave a link to it in the description. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and if you make anything cool with this tutorial, send it to me because I'd love to see it. I'm on Instagram and TikTok as well. Okay, see ya!